welcome to my presentation on supporting target language output in your classroom. I'm really excited to be here today to share some strategies with you to help you support your students in producing target language. Before I begin, I want to thank the Greater Washington Association of Teachers of Foreign Languages for this opportunity and for putting this video series together in a time when teachers really need to connect and collaborate with everything that's going on. So thank you for being here. Before I begin, I'd love to tell you a little bit about myself. I am a high school Spanish teacher from Long Island, New York. I have been teaching since 2009, and in this time, I can safely say that I've taught every secondary level from introductory Spanish 1 through Spanish 5 AP. Through my experiences, I was super fortunate to have taught in the IB program, and I am still currently teaching in the IB program. And this has really shifted my mindset because at the end of their journey, my students are taking either the AP or the IB exam. The IB exam asks students to speak in Spanish for between 12 and 15 minutes. So when I first started teaching IB, I said, oh my gosh, how am I going to get students to speak for this long? And that's really what shifted my mindset in my teaching. I really started to look for opportunities I could grant my students to use target language in the classroom. And I knew that this didn't have to wait until junior, senior year. I could start doing this in level 2. I could start doing this in level 3 and help them build a strong foundation. So I'm going to share some of these strategies with you today. And hopefully you take away some things that you can start using tomorrow to help your students produce more target language. So most importantly, you have to understand the expectations that you have for your own class. So depending on the level, depending on your school and your community, what is a reasonable expectation for your class? Is it students are only speaking in Spanish and communicating in Spanish? Is it, in the beginning of the year, they can use English, but then once they've built up a base, they have to respond in Spanish? You have to figure out expectations that work for your class. And then most importantly, we have to share these expectations with our students. A great way to do this is in the beginning of the year, have a syllabus and have it clearly printed on there. Now, I know not everyone reads the syllabus carefully, so you want to continue to remind them about this throughout the year. You want to hang signs in your classroom that say, Spanish is spoken here, or just have something to remind them that this is where we speak Spanish, and continue to remind them. Eventually, they'll take the hint and realize that when you ask them a question in Spanish, they have to respond in Spanish, but you have to hold strong and not give up. And again, part of that is me being comprehensible to my students. My goal is 90 to 100% of the time, try to use target language with them. I know that for most of my students, my class is the only time of day where they hear Spanish. So I have to be able to give them input that's comprehensible to their level appropriate input as much as I can so that they're hearing the language, they're hearing phrases over and over again that they'll start to acquire and use back with me. So you want to hold them accountable. They're going to push back. They're teenagers. They're comfortable speaking in English. So what can you do? Continue answering them in target language and encouraging them to answer you in target language. And really, I think something we miss a lot of times and we don't realize it is asking level appropriate questions. So let's say you ask your student, what do you prefer to eat for lunch? And they can't answer it and they're trying to answer you in English, and you say, okay, how do I make this more level appropriate? Step back. Do you prefer a sandwich or do you prefer a salad? So now if they answer me with sandwich or they answer me with salad, they're producing language. Although it might not be a full sentence, it's one step in the right direction that they can start building up from there. So you want to just make sure you're always aware of the level. Am I leveling it up as necessary? Am I leveling it down as necessary? Support is a huge way you can win your students over and get them speaking more. They revert back to English because they don't feel confident in their skills. They're teenagers. They don't want to feel embarrassed, put on the spot when they don't know the answer. So how can I boost their confidence? I have to give them tools, okay? So think about your classroom. Do you have your own room? If you do, why not create a word wall, an area in your room where common phrases or key vocabulary is hanging so students can just look up and reference it as needed? Maybe you make an anchor chart and you can design it together with your students to fit their needs, and then hang it in the classroom, and it's another way for them to have a reference. If you're like me and you don't have your own classroom, you can use reference sheets. I like to copy them on colored paper, nice bright paper, so that I can say, take out your green reference sheet or take out your blue reference sheet, and they have it in front of them. So that way, when we're doing a weekend chat and we're chatting about what'd you do over the weekend, they can pull the reference sheet out, they can look at it and find sentence starters to help support them. Eventually, the chart will go away. They won't even look at the weekend chat mat because they don't need it anymore. They've looked at it so many times. So they're acquiring the language, but I'm supporting them on the journey. It's kind of like just giving them the training wheels and helping them find their balance to take them off on their own. What you see here is a reference sheet that I use whenever we do any type of Socratic seminar or class discussion. I give them the sentence starters because I find that students sometimes don't participate because they get stuck on the beginning of the sentence. How do you say I think? How do you say I believe? Or I agree, I disagree? So you want to give that to them because honestly, this is not the most important part of what they're saying. The most important part of what they're saying comes next. So we're not even giving them a chance to get to that important part without giving them some type of support. So you want to be aware of their level, aware of their needs, and this is something you can create at any time. It's something you can create after you get to know your students and you see what they're missing. Another way to support them in the classroom is just being conscious of your classroom design. Now, I know this year it's really tricky because we really can't move them close together. And that's okay. This year is going to look different. We know that. But in the future, it's important to be really conscious of, can I change the seating arrangement of my room so conversations are facilitated, so students can make eye contact? Some great ways to do this is pairs. Let's say you share a room with a teacher who prefers rows and you can't come in and change the desk every single day. That's fine. Why don't you try pairs in rows? That way 2 students just have to move their desks together and now they're together and they can talk. Immediately that partnership is formed, and when you say chat with your partner, they're right there. And it's nice to facilitate conversation that way. Small clusters or groups of 4 is another great way. You can even be really brave and go deskless and sit in a circle. And it's okay, you can try something and you don't like it and try something else. But it's important to think about, how can I get my students in a more natural state for conversation? If you're in a restricted movement classroom, like this year I'm hybrid, so I have half my kids every other day, which is a positive because I have smaller classes and more opportunities for individual students to speak. But the negative is, of course, I'm restricted in the movement. I can still do things like a circle. I just have students turn their body in to look at each other. They don't move the desk. They just turn their chair a little bit and they all face the middle. You could do a similar thing with a horseshoe where students just kind of turn in and face the center, or a runway where they turn in and face the center. And what it does is it just changes up the atmosphere a little bit, and it also has them looking at each other. So they're looking at each other, they're making eye contact, and it's supporting conversation, because it's really hard to have a conversation with someone who's behind you that you're not looking at. If you're fully virtual, you can still support your students. They're going to use Google Translate because it's what they know. They know, I don't know something, I can go to Google Translate and it will give me the answer. That's their go-to. Let's beat them to it. If you can give them some type of resource folder, and the most important thing is it has to be easy access. Google Translate is their go-to because they can just type in Google Translate and it comes up and it does the job. So you want to make sure your resource folder that you give them is easy to access. Add it to your classroom website, add it to your Google Classroom, pin it to the top so it's always there. You can create a folder in Google where you can have a living document. As the year goes on, you add more expressions that they need, or you can find PDFs and just drop them in. You don't have to create it yourself. You can take from what other people have and just add to this folder for your students. Padlet is another great way to do this. It's very visual. Students can go here, they can see, oh, I need this, and they click on it and there it is. They don't have to do the work and find it, and that's most of the battle. But your Padlet link, your Google Classroom folder, has to be easy to find, because if it's not, they go back to good old Google Translate. The last strategy is being purposeful with your design. So I use an old school planner. I'm a paper planner type gal. So when I look at my 5 days a week, I think about what opportunities do my students have to speak in target language this week? What days or what parts of each period are they able to actually speak the language? And you want to put yourself in Johnny's shoes and say, okay, today Johnny's going to do da 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 da. Is it all passive where I'm giving him a lot of input and Johnny is not doing anything? Or is it more active where Johnny's really taking the role and participating? So you want to look for opportunities to get your students involved in their speaking, producing language. Routines can help with this. I know routines are things that some people love to hate, but hear me out. When activities are familiar, students are comfortable with the directions and they can focus more on the product. So sometimes students focus their anxiety in the activity on the directions. What do I have to do? What is she looking for? Is this being graded? All of those questions. So when they're focusing their energy there, they're not focusing their energy on the content that they're delivering, on the expressions or the vocabulary or anything like that. So if I can give them familiar activities that I rotate in and out often, they say, oh yeah, we did this last week. I remember what I have to do here. And now the anxiety of what am I doing? What's expected? Where do I have to go? All of that stuff is gone. And the focus becomes my product, what I'm doing. So this is really important. I have an image here. This is a do now sheet I would give out my level 2s last year. Level 2, they needed to come in and get grounded right away. It was a struggle for them. So we started class with a do now every day. It was not the same type of do now every day. So what I did was I gave myself a blank space. Just every day I could copy, 100 of these and have them for, a bunch of weeks or whatever. So you come in with the do now, and it could be I say something and they have to draw to show comprehension, or they have to speak to a partner and write down what their partner said, or sometimes it was passive where there was a question on the board and I wanted them to reflect. But it gave me flexibility but structure. My students knew every single day we had a do now. They knew, they expected it, they sat down, they had their pen out and they were ready to go, and they knew we were using language right away. So this took away a lot of the anxiety and a lot of the messy directions. What are we doing? What do I need? Do I have a pen? Like all that stuff goes away because it's expected, it's routine. Another great way to get students speaking are, some other routines you can add into your lessons are do now. I love a weekend chat. I love on a Monday coming in and asking my students what they did over the weekend, hearing about what they're doing. It builds great classroom community. You can even ask them what they plan on doing in the upcoming weekend or vacation. Reflections are another way. I use exit tickets as a way for students to reflect what went really well today, where do you need a little bit of help, and this gives me valuable feedback. Images are a great way to support any level learner with speaking. You can put an image up there and you can ask students that are weaker for the basic vocab. Ask students that are stronger, what do you think is happening? What will happen? What had happened for this picture to be here? Memes, they tell me that memes are old, but whatever, I still think they're funny. So you could put a meme up and say, what can we say about this? Or what kind of joke can we make? Or what situation can we apply to this? Thought-provoking questions or situations are good. Anytime you can spark a conversation with something like, Justin Bieber is the best artist of all time. And then they say, no way. And they argue, or you'll have some Bieber fans and they're like, he's the best, I love him. And they go back and forth. But supporting that conversation in the target language is what's important. It gets them excited about it. My favorite thing are games. Of course, they love games, they're engaging, and sometimes they don't even realize how much language they're producing. So I'm gonna share with you 3 of my favorite games. One's an activity, but 2 of them are games to get your students speaking. Taboo, hands down my favorite, and usually one of their favorites. So you can do this in small groups, you could do this as a full class, but one student has a word. So if it's in small groups, they could just hold it up to their head, and their partner has to get them to say the word. So I don't know what's on my head. Let's say it's to play. My partner says it's something you do on the soccer field, or, when you were younger, you used to do this with your friends and with toys, etc. And it gets me to say to play. And then sometimes you could do a point system or something like that to make it a competition. They love it. They go crazy. If you're playing with the whole class, you can have a student come up and project a word behind them. If you're virtual, you can send them a secret word, or you can send them a list of words and they have to describe it to the class and the class has to guess. It's just a fun way to practice circumlocution, and it gets them really excited. You Describe, I Draw is another fun game. Super low prep for me. I have to have 2 pictures, so they work in partners. One partner looks at the picture while the other partner faces away. The person looking at the picture has to describe it in target language to the person who has to draw the picture. The funnier the picture, the funnier their images come out, and also the more fun they have in class. And if they need it, you can give them supportive vocabulary in a visible place. Like things like above, below, left, to the left of, to the right of. And then they love to see whose drawing was most accurate, but they're using target language without even realizing it and having a lot of fun with it. The best activity that I think gets students speaking spontaneously is a Socratic seminar. So our students do these a lot in English or history class, but basically we want to give them a prompt and then have them lead a conversation. This does take a little bit of training. It does take explanation of expectations, but giving students something, a video, a reading, a list of discussion questions, and then having them examine it on their own in their own time, and then come back and have a conversation about it, gives them time to digest what they saw, what they heard, what they read, and then come back with questions, answers, reactions, and really have a spontaneous and super critical conversation. So I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite activities to do. If you have questions about it, I would love to help and connect with you on that. So speaking of that, I would love to connect at any point. I'm on Instagram at Super Senora. I also have a Facebook group called Let's Talk World Language Teaching, where we talk all things world language teaching. And if you have any questions, you can always email me, Christina@supersenora.com. I would love to connect and collaborate on anything you need. So I thank you so much for your time. I wish you the best of luck this school year, and I hope to connect with you soon. Thanks.